Hi, Gary Stearman. Good to talk to you again, and particularly now because we have L.A. Marzulli in the studio for a few minutes, and we're going to be talking about some of his latest work. L.A., welcome to Prophecy
Great
Watchers.
to be here, Gary. Thanks.
You have produced a DVD, and I'm holding it here, Fatima, Miracle of the Sun, or Harbinger of Deception. I think the whole world really kind of knows about the miracle of Fatima, as commonly perceived across the board. People around the world, I think, are familiar with it as a time when the Virgin Mary appeared to 3 Portuguese children and gave them prophecies. They wrote the prophecies down, and they became the property of the Vatican. And there's been so much coverage in the news over the years, going all the way back to the 50s, 60s, 70s. Everybody said, what's the prophecy of Fatima?
Secret,
What is the prophecy of Fatima? And so that's the way it's been presented to us. But with your research, we know something entirely different now.
Well, here's something that most people don't understand. Okay, you've got the 3 seers. First of all, Francisco's off the table because he couldn't hear what the apparition was saying. You've got Lucia, who's a 10-year-old girl at the time, and Jacinta, who's only 7 years old. They're illiterate. They have no grid work in which to place anything that they're seeing except the stories that they've been told going to church and from their family. Very young, illiterate children. After the last apparition of October 13th, nothing happens. In other words, when you go back and you look at the records, there's not one word about Russia or the conversion of Russia. It's not there in the 1917 records. It does not exist. Lucia is taken into a convent, given a vow of silence, which many of the nuns take. She's cloistered, and 11 years after the event is when she begins to write the so-called secrets. So people can do with that what they will. But in the 1917 records, the so-called secrets of Fatima do not exist. They're not there.
Now, I want to go back to the little character that appeared to the 3 children and to the other woman. And the fact that it's a strange-looking, and let me use the word alien-looking character. Can't tell whether it's male or female.
Right.
Its clothing is strange.
Right.
If any of us were to see that today, we would not be thinking any religious thought at all. We would be thinking about something entirely different. But as you got into this, the femininity of this deity and its connection with ancient serpent deities that go way back into history is too pronounced to ignore. It's there.
There's a term I sort of coined, interdimensional transgender entity, because there are no female angels. It's just not there in the biblical narrative at all. Transgendered interdimensional entities. And what I believe is these fallen angels are obsessed with the feminine form, and so they appear as these goddesses. It all goes back to the same thing. They want to be worshipped. And isn't it interesting? Here we are in 2018, and what is the big thing in global society? This sort of exalting the legitimacy of transgendered individuals.
Absolutely.
I want to make something clear. You know, people who are going through this, they need prayer and they need counseling. I understand that, but we still have to understand that what we're looking at, there's a power behind this, which is infusing it. One more thing, you mentioned the sacred feminine. The women, especially in the West, have been elevated, and I'm not just talking about your wife or a housewife or anything like that, but when you look at hair commercials and the commercials that are on TV and the billboards and the ads, they take on this semi-goddess-like form, and you have to scratch your head and say, my gosh, what is going on here? Because it's almost like worship.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like a perfume commercial.
Like a perfume commercial.
With a woman dressed up to look like a goddess.
Like a goddess.
Walking on water.
Why is that? Why is
What's she doing? She's reflecting an ancient belief system. And it didn't come out of nowhere. It came out of the dark side.
That's right.
And it is a satanic deception.
I agree.
And I have to tell you, those of you watching, it's going to be difficult for L.A. and I, in just the few minutes that are remaining, to absolutely present this concept with impact. It is impossible because there's just too much to it.
Even in the film, Gary, I left out so much of the interviews with Dr. Lake and Carl and Derek Gilbert. I mean, it just, you have to keep it moving, but
You
there's so
do.
much I left out. But I think what we have is pithy and poignant, hopefully.
But again, you have taken a rather obscure, historically misinterpreted event, and you've gone and looked at, and I want to say something else here, looked at the photographs, because there are photographs of this event that
Yes.
are phenomenal photographs.
Yes.
And if you haven't seen those, wow, pictures
And,
worth.
I know you haven't seen those photographs. There was a photographer. There was a photographer there. His name was Ben O'Leal, and he had one of those old cameras with glass plates. There's a man I was supposed to interview when I was in Portugal, and so for some reason it never happened. And our guide Francisco just was amazed, dumbfounded that he forgot the interview. And this only happened about several months ago. And so we did a Skype interview with, his name is Jose Machado, and he had access to Sanctuary at Fatima in 2008. What he saw and handled the original glass plates taken on October 13th, 1917. He was able to examine them, and he's qualified to do that. He's qualified to do that. And what he saw there in the glass plates, he's given us all the information. He's also given us Spiral of Life, my publishing company, the rights to the book. We are publishing his book. It's basically, we show the photographs, his analyses. I've written the foreword. Francisco Cordiera has written another foreword to it. And that is sort of that's sort of the pinnacle of the film, when we show the photograph. And he comes on the record. We've got 4 or 5 people like peppering him with questions via Skype. You know, how do you know this isn't a smudge, or there's a object? Because I've always thought, Gary, that photographers get the shot. And the phenomena went on for 10 to 14 minutes. And sure enough, there are pictures. And what it seems to be, and the viewer's going to have to look at it and decide for themselves. It's undoctored. It's in the glass plate itself. It seems like there's a smoke trail that comes up like this, makes a right angle turn, and right over this place where the apparition supposedly appeared is a round object. And what's interesting about this, witness after witness came on the record in 1917, who was on the moors of Fatima, and stated that they looked up and saw a dull silver disc. So it's one thing to have several witnesses say that. It's another thing to have photographic proof from the original glass plates that have been sitting at Fatima, Portugal for almost 100 years, and then have a researcher who's qualified to do this go in, examine the glass plate, and then give us the evidence. And that's what's produced in the film and also the book.
Picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yes, it is.
You see a disc. I mean, I've looked at the pictures. It's a disc. Let's face it. And not just one disc, but there seem to be some other objects there, which we don't have time to talk about.
Right.
But what really, really amazes me is the way that you have linked this event to ancient pagan worship.
Yes.
It's not a Christian event at all. It's a pagan event, and may mark the beginning of the march toward the end of the 20th century and the days where we are right now, because more and more and more we're seeing these things in the air. I mean, all you have to do is read the statistics. UFOs are being seen not by the hundreds, but by the thousands.
And we've had disclosure.
And we've had disclosure. The people in the government have showed us their little closely guarded films of a jet fighter following a UFO. It's been in all the news. And so bit by bit, the story is coming out. But what is the story? L.A., I think, has got the scoop on it. Fatima 1, the miracle of the sun. Fatima 2, strange phenomena. What is this phenomenon? What is this phenomenon? And how is it of value in understanding Christian Bible prophecy? To me, it says a lot. It says more than a mouthful about the last days and what's going to happen.
Satan comes with all signs and lying wonders. And I realize that can be deemed very offensive to some people who believe that Fatima was Mary. That's why Mary's off the table. Look at the evidence, decide for yourself. Look at the evidence, because it's there. And I believe it's a harbinger of deception.
Oh, yeah. And Fatima 2 is just going to blow your mind, because the production values, what you see, and when you hear people actually talking about this thing, not people who are speculating, but people who have the documents, the materials,
Right.
the photographs.
The photographs.
It's all right there. Either DVD for your gift of $25 to Prophecy Watchers, free shipping anywhere in the United States. If you buy both of these together, we love to put things together in combinations for you. We think it's kind of doing you a little service because both of these for your gift of $50, and we're going to give you Jeff Kinley's great book on the Latter-day Church called Wake the Bride. And that package, again, is shipped to you free anywhere in the United States. And the 800 number is on your screen right now. You can call. You can get Fatima 1 or Fatima 2 or both with Jeff Kinley's book. And of course, you know what I would recommend. You've got to see both of these DVDs. And Jeff Kinley's book, what a bonus. L.A., you know, you keep doing it. You keep going out there and probing in places that nobody else will touch. And I can't imagine what the Lord's going to open up next.
Very interesting to see what the next thing on the docket is, as it were.
And I'm sure it'll be exciting because we live in exciting days. L.A. Marzulli, always on the trail of something, and keep it up.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure for me, has been for years, to talk to L.A. Marzulli about what may be the next adventure. This one is worth following because you get an idea of the times in which we live. These are very significant days.
Yes, absolutely.
So keep watching. We are. Thanks for joining us on Prophecy Watchers. You can find us on the web at prophecywatchers.com, where you can sign up for our free email newsletter, or follow us at facebook.com/prophecywatchers. In the meantime, keep watching, everybody, and we'll see you soon.